of my story. Now, if you have not watched one, I suggest you watch part one. Um, Leaving off where I left off on part one, I let you know that I was about to work very closely with a coworker for a period of 10 months, and slowly started to see that this person was kind of racist. Not kind of, she was racist and she didn't realize it. And I, in turn, knew what I had to do spiritually to make sure I was protecting these students. Okay. So it wasn't like she was actively trying to harm people, but it was how she upheld an institution and how she used her biases and some prejudices to try to damage some kids. Okay. Now, most people in the United States, if you grew up in mixed, quote unquote, mixed populations, especially in the 80s and 90s, I was one of them. You had to learn how to integrate, and there was really no kind of step-by-step guide, like how to interact with kids who aren't used to seeing black people and those kind of things. So she and I are products of that. um, I think she thought that she was trying to be inclusive. I think she thought she was being a white savior. Okay. And I think in a lot of ways, she just had not healed from her own life traumas. And I mentioned that in the first video where she was divorcing a man who she married. He was brown, he was Muslim, she was white. I think she was trying, I don't know, in her life, overcompensating for a lot of things, but in the end, I don't think she was really prepared or healed or anything like that to be able to do what she thought she was doing. Okay, she was not qualified. All right, so the first of the school year, let's talk about the makeup of the class. So there were kids. We taught kindergarten together, and in our school we had only 16 kids, and I know that's rare. Only 16 kids. It's a small school. And I'm trying to remember, because there was another class, I don't want to confuse them. So there were 3 children of color in that class, and all the rest were white, from what I remember. So I don't want to confuse one class with another. And the reason why I'm saying this is because of what I'm about to say too. Class was majority boys, male, and of course, you're gonna have certain kind of energies. I don't like, talking about stereotyping boys and girls and things like that, but there was a certain kind of energy, and I started to investigate, and that's what I had to learn to do in general when it comes to helping my students. Like, you got to do your due diligence, because it made it very helpful for me to be able to interact and help the kids that I was working with. And forgot it. There was at least one child of Asian descent, at least one. I'm trying to remember who else. But yeah, so there were things that were happening in the classroom, and I can tell you, some story times around that too. But yeah, so there were 3 black kids, 1 Asian kid, everybody else was white, and um, yeah, yeah. So I will just say, as the most part of the energy of the classroom was a high energy classroom, meaning most young boys tend to be a lot physical and active and want to do stuff, and that, if you've taught in education, like primary, you kind of know what I mean. It's like a lot of energy from them. Less talk and more rock and roll. Oh, well, thank you. I like to sport my accessories well. It's a lovely, ooh, there's some bikers coming down. A lovely spring-like day in Atlanta. Don't be fooled out here. So when it's time, you sport your extra fly gear out here. So I see some cyclists training right now. They're coming this way. But anyway, yeah. So that was the makeup of the classroom, and again, that is important for this story because that first week, this woman, she had never taught public school before. She was only a private school teacher. That first week of school, I can tell she was like, what in bleepity bleeps did I get myself into? So that was the first like indication of the downfall. I've been teaching school for a lot of years, took long-term subbing positions, worked in Title I schools, which means the population was low income, and sometimes low income also means there's not stability in the house, things like that. So I was used to having like high energy or high drama in the classroom, or people bringing in, a lot of trauma. This class wasn't necessarily that, quite honestly. But because of the high energy and because of all the goings on, this teacher, she flipped out a little bit. She didn't realize that there's nobody coming to save her. Because she also, and this is like a lesson in how to act in the workplace when folks take your job, okay? Because she took my job, y'all. I interviewed for the position she was sitting in. And then she flipped out because she was like, what the? Like, these kids wild. These kids are wild. Oh, thank you for subscribing. Yes. So the kids were wild. They're kindergartners, of course. What do you expect? They're going to have a lot of energy. And she definitely wasn't prepared for what she thought she was going to do, because she had already started telling me that she trusted her team. She trusted her parapros in the past, and they were so smart and so capable. Like, she was trying to like condition me into doing work for her. Okay, so that's one thing you always got to look out for. Even though, yeah, she was complimenting the people that she had worked with in the past, also trying to prep me into doing her work for her. And listen, and that's why I told you my age versus her age, maybe even versus the ages of the people she had worked with in the past who were younger, ambitious, they wanted to, please her or whatever. I was like, ma'am, I tried to get the job that you are sitting in right now. I'm not going to do your work for you and get paid like a quarter, a smidgen of what you're getting paid. I'm not the one. Okay. But I am going to watch you though. So that was one of the things that really started making me more and more alarmist about what I was getting myself into with this school year. So this lady was trying to get me to do all of her work for her. And she was also freaked out at the spirit and energy of the class in general, because it's mostly boys, kindergartners, and they just like to play all the time and they don't listen. So it got interesting. So that was the spirit of the room. And as a former kindergarten teacher, actually I even taught pre-K. I even taught even younger kids. So I was ready. I was more than ready, right? And like I said, she was not. She was used to having the students who had nannies and au pairs and parapros and all this other stuff, and all she had to do was just stand up there and start teaching, and they would do the discipline and they would do all the stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm not the one. And I was like, ma'am, I'm not the one. So that's where I was kind of just already just like, wow. And I could see it on her face by the time we got to the second full week of school. It wasn't even a month. I could see it on her face. She wanted to quit. And quite honestly, I think had she done that, it would have been better off for everybody. Everyone, even her. But she did not quit. And because she did not quit, the way she conducted herself throughout the year was abysmal. kind of really sad. And I'm glad I was there to get the real, things that's going on, because I was not having it. Okay, I was not having it. I'm not there to like just get the paycheck, because I promise you, like I said, I could have left there, gone to another school, and instantly would have been paid double instantly. But I knew that I was needed there to bear witness, and I invested in this school a little bit for me. Now I know a lot of people talk about quiet quitting and all this other stuff. It's like, listen, I made my choices, and I'm glad I stood by my choices, because I'm sitting pretty now, right? So yeah. And then there were some other things going on in my life too, where I was just like, listen, I need to stay in this pocket, in this, not rut, but in this routine where other stuff are going on around me. But then even in this classroom, there's some things going on, right? So by the first month, she definitely, like I said, I could see it on her face. She she bit off more than she could chew. And I was kind of like, I was there definitely, and I was teaching, yes, and I was supporting as I could. But when it came to the discipline, the classroom management part that a lot of teachers forget, by the way, she just didn't have it. She just assumed, because um, she had come from a private school where kids are already well behaved, and they've got, like I said, nannies and au pairs and all this other stuff that, they come in already. But this wild bunch, you have to work, honey. You got to come in there and get them right. Okay, I'm just trying to make a turn here. And she didn't know how to do that. Okay. So, yeah, the first few months, dicey. Things really, as a school year, don't really settle in until at least the second part of October, right? Where we start finally getting some routines in, and we start, the kids kind of know what to expect. So by mid to late October, you should be in some kind of routine, right? And then with your curriculum, you should at least have already, like I said, the routines, and you start with some new teachings. And because we live in the United States, if there's any child that's about to be held back, you need to speak up now. And yes, it does mean that early in the year, October. Um, yeah, so academically, there were some kids that came in a lot of different skill sets. Some had their phonemic awareness, that just means there's sounds to letters. Some knew how to read, some had no idea. Some were still working on handwriting. There's a lot going on there, right? Because that's foundational. That's what kindergarten is. A lot of people think, they get to sing songs in color. It's like, yeah, it's more than that. So yeah, so as we're working on like assessing skills and groups and trying to target certain things in the year, she settled in for the most part. But the one thing that just kept gnawing at me is that I knew the curriculum, and that's kind of where, again, she didn't, I don't know, what she thought she was thinking she was doing. Like every day she would switch up a lesson, and she would not stay with the curriculum. Remember, she's taught in private school, so that's part of her downfall. In private school, they can do whatever they want to do and get paid for it. But when you're in public school spaces, you kind of have to follow the curriculum. Like, yes, you can make your lesson plans, but you got to stick with it, right? So she was always switching it up. And so by the time we got to our first kind of mid-year, and this past October, past November, getting close to mid-year, at our school we have teacher conferences with our administration. And this is where I first started telling on her, because she wasn't doing the curriculum. She wasn't reading the books. They invest in our training, and I mean thousands of dollars. I think even this was not the year that I flew to Boston for a training, but yeah, this was the time where we had money enough to send teachers around the country for different trainings and stuff like that. But that year I did not. I chose not to because after, like I said, the things I saw, it just didn't sit well with me. And I was like, I had to make a choice. I have to be here. I have to be here. So while she was kind of going off script often with curriculum, and she did not have classroom management, so the kids were all wild for her, that is. And it was kind of funny because one time I was like in the middle of doing like a teaching or something. And of course, the kids are sitting on the rug and they're quiet and they're listening and all this stuff. And we were getting ready to transition. And so I sent them off to transition. And then I'm still kind of there in front of the room. And it's her turn. Like she literally tried to jump in the and it was very, like, I wish it was filmed. I wish it was filmed. But imagine one teacher up front in the front of the room. We're telling kids, all right, go get your blah, 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 and come right back to the rug. And so they come, they get whatever, a book or something, and then they come back to the rug. And I'm still there, just getting them ready. And I prepare them like this is their expectation for this lesson, blah, blah, blah. And then she jumps in. And I didn't stay. Normally, I would, if any other teacher, I kind of would have stayed there through the like expectations and beginning of the lesson. But the moment she stepped up there, I walked away. Which it wasn't rude because it was her turn. But the moment I stepped away, the kids went wild because they knew who had the control in that room. And it wasn't her. Okay? And she knew it. They knew it. I knew it. All of these things that can't be said, but are obvious. And I don't want to say that she had a jealousy, because like I said, I think she was expecting me to do a certain thing for her based on she was sharing a lot of her life. She was like, I'm going through a divorce and my ex-husband's in prison. Yes. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Trauma. He was a Muslim, I want to say from not Pakistan. It might have been Bangladesh. But her children were definitely brown. Okay? They didn't look like her. They were brown. And she was getting remarried to a white man. So, see, sometimes, I'm going to pause right here. Sometimes, yes, people share because they want to make that connection, but then some people share because they think if they, this is what my dad says, put out a poor mouth, like a po mouth, the country term, meaning share all your downfalls and maybe people will feel sorry for you and they'll help you and all this other stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but there are people who use that as a tactic to manipulate. She is one. Okay. Once I started to recognize, like I said, as an older woman in my 40s at the time, and yeah, I'm trying to remember, how old was I? Was I 40 yet? Yeah, I was like 42 or something. Yeah. So she, like, I look a lot younger than I, am. And so I don't think I ever told her how old I was, or maybe I did and she forgot. Like, she really thought that I was young, scrappy, and eager to do whatever. But I was not, because she did not know that I interviewed for her job and they gave it to her. And maybe I did have some resentment, and that was something else I had to work on for myself, knowing that I'm there for the children, not for her. I was there for the children. And that's where my perspective shifted. Yeah, I had some issues, some beef, some resentment for her, but I was not going to let that interfere with what I said I was going to do for these kids. And especially, like I said, the 3 brown ones, or actually 4 brown ones that were in that room that year. Okay. So it was, and I'm gonna leave it at that for part 2. It was a little bit bro like in the room, but I also had some parents that were like behind me in a lot of ways, because they were just like, listen, do whatever you gotta do for these children, for these little white boys, like, seriously. Because I remember one mom, she was like, can you punish him? Like she was for real. And then there was another set of parents who my guy, bless his little heart, he literally was like a jumping bean. Like they were tired. Okay, they were tired. They were ready. So I'm not saying I did not have supports. I had the parental supports, but it was definitely a bro type classroom, and the spirit of white boy energy all through that classroom. But even the parents were like, can we do something about this? Can we? Um, yeah. So that's kind of where I'll leave it for part 2. Okay, stay tuned for part 3. Um, as I got to know the parents, and that was my key to it. That's also what helped me grow spiritually, knowing that not every child presented to you is what it seems to be, right? So the 3 brown kids, and I'll talk about those in the next video, or actually 4, and why I wanted to protect them, because it was really them I was there for. But I was also there for the others. They benefited too. All right, with that, I say take care.